Say that loud and proud. That's awesome.
Numbers like that.
So cool.
This is Southwide.
Yes.
And I pulled the number and we have like 7,500 library.
We ready?
Registered.
Can we convene? All right, so we're going to call the meeting to order.
No,
I'll just do a quick roll call. Lynn,
Yes, present.
Jessica, Bonnie, myself, here, Leslie Malden, Maria, Jay, Gretchen,
We're finally here.
Randy B.
Here.
And Genesis couldn't be here today. So, all right, we have enough for a quorum, so let's go ahead and look at the agenda. I think we have, if everyone is in agreement, I think we should table for today the where is it? Help me. 5. Oh, okay, I have to turn the page, it's so difficult. 5A, we're going to see if we can schedule, since we have so few people here today, and it's such a big deal that affects us all, and it's in conjunction with the city, and try to come up with a special meeting time to discuss, and it also gives everybody a little bit more time to go into, because we have several people like graduates that have had major things going on in their lives, and it gives us a little bit of time to go in and make our comments on the strategic plan that Hillary sent out. So we'll go ahead and table that and come up with a time for a special meeting. And other than that, I think the agenda, unless anyone else has anything to chime in, Hillary? We will consider then an adoption of the amended agenda, tabling item 5A.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the agenda as amended. Sorry. I move that we move the agenda be amended and accepted.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And with that, as always, we will read, to set the tone for the meeting, we will read the mission, which is to develop, advance, and nurture all facets of the arts to enhance the quality of life for Meridian residents and its visitors. Moving on to approval of the minutes from the June meeting. If there's nothing to be brought out for clarification, we would entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes. Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes.
Second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Signed. Moving on to new business, we have the fire station number 6.
Right.
Would you like to take us through that, Hillary, and then we'll...
I might lead it just because our last public art committee meeting, the 2 people that were at that meeting aren't here tonight. So I'll start this and get this going, and then I'd like to give the floor to Charlie Butterfield as well. Deputy Chief of Operations, finally got it, all right. Because he's been involved in this whole process and working with fire administration as well. So the recommendation from the committee was Daniel Borup's proposal. So he had proposed in the first round as well. And we essentially, he was preferred candidate from fire administrative staff, but wanted a few changes. So essentially, the request for us to have a gender-neutral figure is why he included this proposal with a mask, but then the pose that he had proposed didn't make sense in context with wearing a mask, because you don't wear a mask and stand straight up, right? So his new proposal is here. It's on all of your screens. So it would be about, I think it's 4 feet 10 inches high in the kneeling position. I shared this with Mayor Tammy as well, and she initially wasn't a huge fan of the mask, but it's my understanding that that's not an issue as much anymore. So I think that the committee proposal would still stand and that she would support that same recommendation going before council. Daniel agreed to change the pose of the sculpture before having reference images, but fire staff also provided reference images. And I couldn't turn these around, so I'm sorry, I was gonna have to kink your head. So here's how the firefighter would actually be holding the hose and what their apparel looks like. And this is actually the female firefighter for the Meridian Police Department. What did I say? I'm sorry, police? Meridian Fire Department, why they're wearing fire gear. So Daniel will use these photos to actually reference for the sculpture, which would be bronzed. She's our first female firefighter? No. A female firefighter with the city of Meridian.
So will he use the translucency also of the mask? Because I think that's what's scary to me about that mask, is that it's you can't see through it. It makes it seem scary.
I thought it was menacing, actually.
Yeah, it
When I
seemed-
first saw it, it looked menacing to me.
You can't see the
Yeah.
eyes, and it's just this like, huh?
It's softened, though, with the stance. It's changed.
But
It's
with
not-
when it's down on the knee.
Yeah, it's better, yeah.
It's better.
I don't know how he could incorporate a translucent shield with a bronze sculpture being
Yeah.
cast.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice idea, but practically I don't know if it would make the most sense.
Well, I mean, kids think things like that are some of them might be, but yeah, maybe they'll just think it's cool. You know?
probably will.
Wow, look at that man.
Charlie, do you want to just speak to this a little bit or share any
Yeah,
input?
certainly.
please.
So, this is the second round that we went through. We did see all of the initial, after the initial proposal went out, we looked at everything that was there, and there were, I think there was one sculpture that was a standing male firefighter. But, moving forward, we really, from a department administrative aspect, we want to ensure that we are supporting inclusivity and diversity within the fire department. So that is really something myself and the fire chief have been preaching throughout the department. And so having a statue or a figure that is going to be on display for probably the next 50 years, we didn't think really went around our core values of diversity and inclusivity of having a standing male firefighter, especially when we do, in fact, right now have 2 female firefighters in our ranks. And we look to have many more in the future. So with this particular one, the artist's initial rendering had the statue standing up. And that's really not indicative of a firefighter's approach into a burning building. So when we do enter burning buildings, which is what we do, we do enter into this like kneeling, crouching position. We need to get under the smoke, get under the heat. And so this is pretty representative of what a firefighter would be doing, especially the pictures that were taken here at Bree, of making that entry into a burning building. And her placement of her hands on the hose and kind of that crouching one knee up, one knee down. And so I think for the next 50 years to have something that is representative of kind of what we look like when we are truly at that moment of engaging. And in fact, I would even maybe, as we move forward in this process, have her lean forward a little bit more as opposed to kind of in that upward position, because it is really more of an attacking kind of gaining entry into a burning building to get in, to get the fire extinguished. Maybe having her lean forward just a little bit to kind of show that action movement, if you will, I think would really be extremely beneficial moving forward to have something for 50 years and to definitely have it representative of the firefighters who will be staying at this house to look out as they walk by this in the morning to, coming to and from work, to have something that is very a part of what our culture is, something of that attack, something of what we strive greatly in our training to do, and then also with that mask, having that gender neutrality for the ages to come, and posterity's sake. I think I'm really pleased with what he has. I think there's a little more details we can do with it, but generally speaking, from a fire department perspective and speaking on behalf of the administration, I'm really pleased heading in this direction, and to have something like this on the front of that firehouse, again, like I said, for many, many decades to come. I'm really supportive and excited to see us moving in this direction.
Well, first, let me just thank you for your service and for your guidance, your service as a firefighter, and for your guidance through this process. It's been, and also for your approach to the gender neutrality and being inclusive. Thank you. That's amazing. I have a daughter, I know several of us do, and I have a son as well that I think would be benefited by hearing what you just said. Thank you so much. And I think now that it's in the crouching position, I love your idea of having it, the lean, because when you said that, I can just see that in my mind, how that would make it more actively representative of what you do. But yeah, thank you for your work, thank you for your service, and I'm fine with this and the further development that you talked about. Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, if there is, I think it's worth maybe asking Daniel if he could fashion something with the mask that could be like a lucite or something, so that you could actually see through it, would maybe be a really nice feature, but I don't know if that's possible because I'm not a sculptor.
Madam Chair and Bonnie. I guess the one thing with that too, if we were to make it translucent, then would we be moving into that area of gender? Looking at, if he could somehow make it where it would still look gender neutral, I think that'd be great. But I don't know if we start kind of crossing into that. Is that a man or is that a male or a female inside? With that, just the way it is, you don't know, right? I think that helps with the diversity and inclusivity kind of idea, right? And I think that to a bigger point, that we actually have one of our female firefighters as the quote-unquote,
Dimensional model. That made a big
dimensional
difference.
model. I think we're still on pretty high ground, because this could be a male firefighter, but then again, it could also be a female firefighter. And that's really the message that we want to send, especially as we move into the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years that this bronze statue will be in front of that station.
And that's a difference that I see from what I saw before, is that using the female as the model brings more gender neutrality to it. As far as what I can see, that was such a great idea. Such a great idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm thinking too that this is just a rendering. He's probably going to put some more detail there on the side where the ear is, because I'm looking at this where you have a strap coming down. You have a little bit more detail that will make it seem less stark. It'll have more detail with the straps, and I think that will take some of the otherworldliness away from the look of that mask, even if it's not translucent.
One of the points that was shared at that last Public Art Committee meeting as well was also that the way that his digital rendering looks, he makes it look a lot shinier than what a bronze sculpture actually looks like. So if you give me just a moment. So this is more of the sheen that you would have versus the other one looks really shiny, like especially shiny. It looks kind of like that space-like.
Yeah.
When you think about actual bronze, it won't be quite that, I don't know, shiny. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's been a lot of work and a lot of thought and a very sensitive, positive approach to this process, and I love that. Can you go back to that picture before that? Yeah. I'm feeling that I could recommend this. Especially there will be further clarifications like you talked about, and the city will be involved. What comments?
Madam Chairman, I think that what you said earlier about delineating the mask, having more detail on the mask so it doesn't look sort of ghoulish, you know. So there's actually, it looks like a mask and not just something covering somebody's face. That's it. And I think if that happens, then all this will kind of fall away, you know, all these concerns. I think that would be good.
Madam Chair, if it's that important to have female representation, can it just be a female firefighter?
We did ask that question at the agenda meeting.
I'm sorry, I wasn't at the committee meeting, I was gone.
It was the agenda, the mayor's
I'm sorry, what was your question?
meeting. It was.
If it's that important to have female representation and the issue of how it's looking is a problem, can it just be a female firefighter?
Without a mask?
Yeah.
I think that the discussion was that the mask lends itself to being either, and that, say, 40
Right.
years down the road, we have, I don't know if it will happen, but a majority female firefighters, then it could be seen in either light if it retains that
Sure.
mask.
In terms of sending a message, it certainly would be a bolder choice to say we want to recruit women to just make it female.
Then it excludes everyone that's already served that has been a
Right.
male.
Right, and that was Mayor.
That was kind of where that
I-
conversation,
I thought was compelling. I mean, it has been
Two women on the
mostly
force?
men, but she also didn't, and I thought this was a valid statement, that she didn't want to not respect the male firefighters who have given service and who will continue. And so by making it gender neutral, it kind of serves both those purposes of honoring the service that's been given and will continue to be given, and being more inclusive moving forward, with having more female firefighters involved, which obviously they've got on their radar. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we really want, what I was hoping for actually was something more symbolic of the fire service. The fire service is full of symbology, right? I mean, ladders and hooks and axes and the Maltese cross and nozzles and hoses, and the list goes on and on. But it seems like with, you know, going through 2 RFP processes and kind of landing into a figure is kind of where we seem to land. And if that's where we narrow down the context of where we're headed, then the conversation was, well, if we're going to go with a figure, let's go with something as gender neutral and, I don't know, ambiguous figure as much as we can, but still kind of keep that symbology of the fire department. And with the mask like this, I mean, in my world and in the world of firefighters, having that mask on is very commonplace. I mean, that's how we train. That's very common to have that breathing air on in the training ground, to have it on real world calls. So I know for the general public, maybe that mask, and seeing a mask on a firefighter isn't as normal as it is to us, but for us, that's a regular occurrence to have that mask on and to be breathing the air out of the bottle that we wear on our back. So having that look to us is familiar, whereas I understand maybe the general public, it wouldn't be as familiar to have that a human being with a mask like that on it. But then again, we really, that discussion did come up in some of these meetings. Do we just go with a female and just call it good? But then that almost contradicts the other, if we're trying to truly display a diversity and being inclusive department, you know, the direction to the artist was really, can we go with something that is really gender neutral? And this, I think, does bring about a gender neutral. And with having the mask on, it really creates that ability for this, well, that could be a male firefighter, but it could also be a female firefighter. It could be a transgender firefighter. We don't know. You leave it up. You leave it up to interpretation, which I think is a big part of art anyhow, right? And then to the onlooker's interpretation of the art, they get to create the narrative that they want to create.
Yeah, and we talked about, of course, you brought up a very good point about it, that it could be a transgendered person. It could be anything, because we talked about, one thing that was brought up is that, oh, we wish we had the budget to have a male and a female, but in that context, this makes sense to me.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I haven't talked to the artist about this quite yet, but we could also include something to that goal and that aim of being a diverse and inclusive department in the panel as well, or the what do we call it? Yeah, artist sign plaque as well.
We talked about the possibility of having a quote put onto the plaque that was from, it could be from Mayor Tammy. She's female. She's a leader. It could be a quote from Mayor Tammy, which I think would be wonderful. It could be a quote from one of your female firefighters. It could be to even pull us further into that arena of inclusivity. So that was discussed as well, and we could continue to, to develop that idea alongside the detail that would come onto the mask in the final rendering, so that it would be less otherworldly and more descriptive, more a depiction of what we see there in the real pose, and then the action. I love that action.
And the other thing too, again, with the face mask being like that, outside of just gender, we're also talking about ethnicity, right? Having the mask there, we're broadening, I think, a whole lot of other areas of that diversity and inclusivity. Is this, what is the ethnic origin? We don't know, it's up to interpretation. And again, I just think that that's really what we are trying to embrace as a fire department culture, is that diversity. And so when you kind of leave it up to interpretation, I think you really, it goes with what our views are, and I think the views moving forward for the city and for the fire department in decades to come.
Thank you. Quiet. Any more comments, questions, discussion? If not, we would thank you for being here, and we'll consider a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept or approve the proposal, the recommendation for the Fire Station number 6 bronze figure by Daniel Borup.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Any second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you so much. And your comments were very, very illuminating. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Okay, moving on to 4B, the Partnerships Public Art Plan proposal.
So I'm sorry, I forgot to include this attachment in your packet, but we can just briefly walk through this, especially not having the strategic plan on there gives us a little bit of time to walk through this.
Okay.
So essentially, VIA Partnerships is an organization that specifically consults and helps communities build public art plans and specific district public art plans sometimes. So they'll focus on, say, a certain area or a downtown or something. But they've worked with municipalities, other volunteer organizations. They've worked with a large range of people. And I don't quite know how, but Jessica found them through some research and had been just asking general questions. We had them on a conference call, and they kind of told us what they could do, what services they could perform. And we essentially asked them to pare down what they would recommend for us to do moving forward into this next step, developing a strategic or a public art plan. So they outlined essentially 2 tasks. A community survey, which would be based online to help capture the pulse of the community's aspirations and goals for public art. They have really great examples. I'll show you what those look like after going through this a little bit. But essentially, a community survey that's issued online, and then developing a report or survey report that analyzes the responses and synthesizes the points made through that survey collectively. They would also monitor the survey responses, work with city staff, and they already kind of have a good range of survey questions that we could already kind of lean towards because some of them make sense for things we would ask. Their next task would be visioning work session, and they propose a half-day work session with the commissioners and other stakeholders, which could include city staff, to develop basically the visioning. So what projects do we see coming up in the next 5 years, 10 years, however, and then help determine, going through that public art criteria that we've already been discussing a bit, what types of things should go where or what makes the most sense, but not necessarily outlining and saying, like, next year you're going to do this, the next following year you'll do this. It seems to be more of a broad scope, and then to write a report, again, documenting that work session and interviews and recommend next steps. So our budget enhancement request to City Council was for $10,000, and we did not tell them that was our budget, but the two tasks that they outlined come in right under $1,000, and that would give us a little room to hopefully help boost marketing for getting that survey more widely spread and used, which could be good. So really quickly, I'll show you some of the examples of other surveys that have been made. Look over there. So this was for downtown St. Louis, so it's a more specified area, but essentially they outline who they are, why they're doing this, and then they relate it back to a larger project. So it says, what examples of public art in downtown are you familiar with? Please click on each image that you recognize. So in this, we could include the public art that we already have in the mix and see which ones people recognize or have noticed the most. You can click a number of them, right? So as many as you want. And then you can fill in additional comment box.
Where's Stan Musial,
Sorry, what?
that gray bronze of the baseball player
I didn't see it.
here in St. Louis? I love that one. I don't think he's there.
I don't know.
There he is. Ta-da! I've seen it.
And then it asks for what other types of public art projects are compelling to you. It's not the language that they use, but it's saying below is a sample of projects from across the country that represent different approaches, styles, media, and even duration. I'm particularly interested in this part because this will help us better form what we're putting in our calls to artists, right? Like if we know that people in Meridian would like to see something like this cool stained glass water tower, great. That helps us kind of narrow down what we're asking for. And I think it helps give our artists a better idea of what people want as well, because they don't want to take a lot of time to create a proposal that no one's interested in. They want to make something that will get them a commission. And it also might help us broaden our scope of who we get included or who responds to our public art calls as well. If someone's really into a certain niche area that people seem to want to like, we could attract more people from that as well. Okay, so then it asks about goals, and it asks for you to check. I think it's up to 4 goals that you have. Again, we don't have to do exactly this, but seems pretty on key. types of public art. It just gives general types without an example. So murals, video projection, interactive artwork, sculpture. Again, you can only select up to 4. And then places where public art should be located. This is another, I think, a really helpful one that we could include in our survey. I know that parks are probably going to be one, but I'd also like to see where else people want to see art. Again, just to help us focus on give us purpose to why we're going, which direction we choose to go. And to give us also that backup, so when we are proposing to City Council, this is the call we'd like to release, and this is why we want to release this type of call in this area. We have data to help support that that's something that the community sees as value.
You know what I see that is constantly consistent in language in these types of surveys is that you never see the word entertainment. Culture has almost taken on a feeling of obligation as opposed to entertainment. So if we were to do this, I would love to say downtown is a place where you can experience art, culture, and entertainment, to include, to more closely connect culture and art with the fact that they are forms of entertainment, forms of history, but forms of entertainment. People want to have fun. Anyway, just
Yeah.
random comment, but it's consistent on every page that
Yeah.
art and culture start to seem like this obligation as opposed to an entertaining thing that we do with our lives, that are fun we do with our friends, that are gathering places.
Yeah, I
Just wanted to comment on
Yeah,
that.
we can definitely,
course.
and we can
Right.
edit our questions to be whatever we want. That's part of their,
Oh, there's
proposal.
entertainment.
So there was one survey, and then here's the other survey. And again, they're pretty similar. I'm just going to cruise through this one. You kind of get the format of it. Introduction, below is sampling of current existing artwork. What are you familiar with?
Oh, I love that.
And then places for public art. This one's shorter. Priorities for public art. So this is also, I think, very interesting, because it asks the public to tell us what they prioritize versus just types of art that they prioritize. Because it might give us a little more flexibility as far as interpretation of their responses. Again, these are pieces of art throughout the U.S. that they can. And then I liked this last question, number 8. Tell us something unique about Meridian that a visitor might not know about. I think this might help us better understand what people identify Meridian as, or identify Meridian.
I like that question too.
Yeah.
So like I said, they will work with us on developing our questions, but they've got 2 good examples here we could modify to how we would prefer. More than anything, I wanted to share with you guys, though, that proposal cost fell in line with what we had requested in our budget enhancement. And that budget enhancement has not been taken off board yet.
Yay.
So that's good. And then I think that there could also be potentially, could be other expenses in there that are not immediately apparent. For example, if we produced something that was a hard physical copy that we wanted to print a limited number of, that might be something else that could fall under here as well. But essentially,
We
they're
have
not
$550
creating for us the
Dollars of leeway there.
plan itself. They're creating data for us to incorporate in a plan. I talked with Jessica and Jay about that, and they think that it's possible for us to use other resources to build the plan. We could even use Canva. We don't have to have an artist or consultant create the actual plan. We could put everything together. We can put the pieces together and also include other references to data and information that we already have. We already know the proportion of city dollars versus MDC dollars versus sponsorship dollars that have gone into our existing catalog, and that might be relevant to mention in our plan as well, just to give background to the current catalog. Are you guys okay with what they're proposing in this scope, or do you think that there's something else that would be more valuable than one of these two tasks that we would need a consultant to advise us?
I really like this because I think that we're such a quickly growing and changing community that getting a baseline, we've never done anything that gave us a baseline of the people that are living here now and kind of get an idea. Some people have been in the community longer and would be able to see the relevant changes from 20 years ago to what we'd get out of this survey. But we would have a baseline from the community in the midst of this quick growth to guide us and give us some information about the community itself and what they'd like to see and what would bring more people downtown and what pops out about them. A new person moving in, what draws them, what pops out, are there some trends there that we could work with?
Madam Chair, if I may, I agree. I think that I haven't read it in great detail here just at this moment, but it's what I felt like we were looking for. And nice to see those examples of the surveys. And to your point, Leslie, I think it would be interesting if there were a brief demographic piece at the end that asked, have you lived in Meridian 1 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, 10 plus, right? Keep it simple. But I think that, I agree, I think that would be really interesting to see some different perspectives based on the length of time they've lived here.
I love that. Adding the demographic question would really guide us. Thank you.
It's really important.
Madam Chair, when I came here a couple of years ago, there was a thing at the library, the Cherry Library, for like new people to come. Is that still going on?
Not really.
Oh, okay.
Not in events.
Okay. Because I thought that might be a place where we could put a very short survey for people moving into the area.
They definitely see, I definitely see a lot of new residents like
Right.
every day, but we
I
just don't
see.
have formal events. So we certainly we always share city stuff at the library. So
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
definitely would be happy to do that.
And I'm just thrilled that it came in for almost with what, $550 difference out of 10,000, that it came in at almost exactly what we'd proposed as that budget enhancement.
Yeah.
So that's good, and it does leave us a little bit of leeway to make some hard copies like what she was just talking about. Gretchen said that they offer these things, you probably offer them online at the library, plus we might want to have some hard copies made for to sit at the libraries for people that are there that want to fill it out and drop it into a box or, so that
Or
leaves
events
us.
at MAC events.
Madam Chair, that was something that Jessica specifically wanted. Because they've seen a lot of input at the community events that the comp plan has been going to and gathering survey information from. We could have it at all of the concerts, we could have it at each Art Week event, we could have it, I mean, depending on the timeline of when it happens, or when we're at that stage. But the point is that we could check out iPads and go into the community and have people offer to say, hey, would you mind taking the survey about public art in Meridian? And if they don't want to, great, whatever. And if they do, awesome. We've got one more survey that we might not have captured through a boosted Facebook post or through a social or a city newsletter, So it'd be worth it even just to have, I think Jessica or Jay might have mentioned like office hours. Like we could have people, commissioners, going out somewhere for an hour and asking if they'd like to, 2 hours, asking people if they'd like to provide their insight. So I think there's a lot of flexibility there as far as other ways we can get people's input. We can send somebody to the library, and as long as the library is okay with us getting people out there. So there's a lot of options. Or people go to parks. You could do whatever. It doesn't have to be necessarily an event or a city event, as long as we have notified the people hosting it that we want to be there. It'd be great. Okay, I'm gonna.
Utilize the Nextdoor app.
Yeah, we have Nextdoor. We can share the link easily. They do have some type of polling or survey option on Nextdoor, but it wouldn't let us capture the same breadth of information. So if we could even just share, though, that the link is here and that we're using this input to help construct a public art plan, I think that that's of value to get it to those people as well. We've got like, I don't know, 40,000 people on the next door.
I think this looks like a great use of our, if it were to be approved, of the budget enhancement.
Are you guys
Love this.
comfortable? I know most of you haven't really been exposed to VIA very much, but would you be comfortable with us using them as a professional service consultant as well? Or would you rather us put out an RFP and say, these are the types of things we're looking for? It would be a professional service.
I'm comfortable using VIA. I think what we've seen here is that this is what they do all day, every day, and this is what they've worked with some big communities. They've worked with, Providence is a smaller community. St. Louis is a large city, and I don't know how many of you have spent time there, but they have a lot of public art and a lot of things going on in St. Louis. I think there's probably more of them out there, but I'd be fine.
Madam Chair, I can't remember if it was Jennifer or Jessica, I think it was Jessica, who had done a lot of homework on the front end to identify this firm. So I personally feel really comfortable because I feel like the research was done to find a firm that specializes in what we need. And certainly seeing this proposal, it seems to me like
Good fit.
it's a no-brainer.
Exactly. Thank
Okay.
you, Gretchen.
Happy with that too. Makes my job a lot easier.
Yeah, okay, good. So, if there's no more discussion, we would consider motion. To accept via
We have to
partnership.
wait.
I don't know if we need a motion
We can't
because we
take a
don't
motion
really,
until
we
we have
don't
the
technically
budget.
have the funds yet, so we couldn't reach out to them until we know
Okay.
for sure that those funds are being appropriated by city council.
Okay.
But I will communicate, Jessica's been the one in contact with them, so I'll communicate that we are happy with the things that they included and that pending our approval of funds, we'd be interested in working with them in negotiating a contract
Great,
closer to October. Probably need it. I mean, it could.
perfect.
Figure out that side of it.
Thank you, Hillary. Moving on to 4C, the accession and de-accession policy. Who wants to speak to that? Emily, I know you've been working on that.
Trying.
Sounds on. Madam Chair, members of the commission, this has been on my list of things to do for years. So this is an auspicious moment. A draft is ready. It's, the one that was in your packet is,
Slightly older.
oh, it is?
Yeah, because you sent me other updates.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I got a draft to Hillary, and at the probably 12th hour, I sent her an update because it occurred to me that we needed to address the situation that we have run into where a citizen complains about a piece of artwork. So I did add that kind of toward the end. It's not a huge change to what you saw and I'm sure reviewed already, but we can discuss that. Since that has come up, maybe that's a good place to start. I drafted this so that those complaints would be accepted within the first 6 months of the city's acceptance of that artwork. There were a few that I reviewed that I think were similar to the library's policy that we talked about when we had an issue with the traffic box before that said, I think it said 5 years of unabated complaints or something like that. And I really thought that would be horrible to receive 5 years of unabated complaints. So I kind of snipped that a little bit and said, you can complain when we first put it up. And if you get here, if you move into Meridian and you just loathe this piece of artwork and it's been there for 5 years, well, you missed it. Of course, we'd be happy to take your input and, the city of Meridian will always listen to its citizens, but this really envisions a process where if, the citizenry absolutely hates it once it's installed, then we have a method to hear them out and kind of deal with that. But overall, this deals with the situation where we, one, receive gifts. Do we accept that gift or not? And what's the process for doing that? Two, what if we want to deaccession a piece of artwork, which there are two situations, deaccessioning and decommissioning. So deaccessioning is kind of moving it on to someone else or somewhere else. And decommissioning is really discarding it or destroying it, which is more appropriate for a more temporary piece of art generally, or occasionally it's, I think, appropriate where a piece of art has been damaged, probably typically by weather or maybe a car accident or something unforeseen. So this is the draft. It borrows kind of some ideas and language from different policies throughout the country, and some of it's original. So it's a first draft, and it's all yours.
Emily, thank you. This is a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work to think through these things. And we have been talking about this for a long time. It's just been, I think we kind of needed to get more public art installed to really have a feeling for how this policy would work. And we're to that point now where we've got enough that we can look at this and make sense of it. I read through it, and I think I love the addition at the end that you made about the public input and putting some parameters around that. I think it's good. I think it's first draft. I think for a draft, it's good. I really read through it, and I thought we talked a lot when Jessica and Jennifer and I went to the meeting that we went to in Moscow. This was talked about a lot. It was amazing how many speakers talked about this subject and how important it was to have a policy. And then we went out and looked at the art in the community, and it became even more relevant. And I think actually it seems like it's been forever, but I think from what I heard at that meeting, we really are still ahead of the game. Having this policy ready to go and in place. So thank you. And it addressed a lot of the issues that were talked about in those breakout sessions too. It addressed a lot of the issues. Public comment was a big topic of concern, and also adding that you remove it from the insurance, even having that detail in about removing it from the insurance, because that is missed a lot, and
Yeah.
it's a huge problem. And so I just think this is really, really well done. Comments?
Madam Chair, there were two items that I thought worth addressing with the full commission. One was on page 3, and with the call to artists. The second paragraph, just by saying public art by definition includes the solicitation of input. I got really hung up on the phrasing of that, because in my mind, the definition of public art is it's for public benefit, but that part of the process of the commission is public input. But I'm not, it's not a hard stop for me because of the second sentence, where it gives us that, this body is the public input to a large extent. But I just wanted to offer that it tripped me up a little bit, and I kept coming back to it being like, but it's nothing that is highly problematic. And then on to the part about the challenge on page 6 that you added. The only piece that I don't know if it's worth adding in there is kind of the criteria we'd consider, which may have a financial implication. In other words, if someone were to challenge something, one of the things I think we would want to look at is how expensive is it to replace or remove that, and whether or not it's really of a financial value as well. And so I don't know if that's covered in the other experts part of that paragraph, or just maybe naming that we would consider a financial impact to that decision as a part of that criteria, I think might be worth considering.
Great help.
But I agree, it's great. Thank you for doing all the heavy lifting on writing a policy like that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, those are good comments. I think maybe the first one, Could be just, yeah, the inclusive solicitation, but maybe we could have a little bit of change to the verbiage there that more reflected the spirit of the second sentence. To that end, public input on proposals received may be solicited from the public at large, the city's appointed or focus group. Maybe,
Madam Chair, if I could interject.
Yes, yes.
So the term public art is a term of art,
Mhm.
no pun intended. But it really does mean that the public was a part of its selection.
Mhm.
So it's, in the classic sense, it does mean putting that proposed artwork out for the public
Public
at
review.
large. Though we have, it's not a law, it's just really, that's kind of an industry standard almost. So the kind of takeoff on that is to say, well, you are members of the public, you, the commission. And so to the extent that you have given your input, it is public art. So there's, it's not hard and fast, but what the real true meaning of public art means that the citizens of Meridian at large have had input in the acquisition of that piece. So there's also art that is accessible by the public, so art in a public place, but it might be privately owned, it might be commissioned, it might be something that it does not have as part of its acquisition the public buying into that necessarily. And so really that term really does mean that the public has been asked what they think of that piece of art.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you. And on to the second comment, can we scroll down?
Whoa.
On here.
Madam Chair, and by those comments, I don't mean that I'm close to your comments at all, but
Yeah, of
just
course.
to tell you some of the background
Of course.
behind that, how that's written.
Okay. Thank you. More comments and discussion from commissioners? Once again, thank you, Emily. Crazy, crazy lot of work. And we are ahead of the game. I think having this in place is going to be very, very helpful, and it may be something that we revisit over time as we gain experience with how it actually works functionally. Because right now, our deaccession policy will take some time to even need to use. So
Right.
I'm sure we'll find holes possibly when we go through the actual use of the policy, but thank you. Do we need to, can we have this put on the agenda again for the August meeting?
Well, and just the cleaned up version of it, yeah.
All right, thank you. Wow, moving on to
Thank
the
you.
Symphony 30th Year Anniversary Gala. Hillary, do you want to?
Yes, so, okay. David Stolhand sent me an email inquiring on if or how the Meridian Symphony Orchestra might be able to utilize the space in the gallery and possibly on the lobby area and then meeting rooms A and B for their 30th anniversary gala fundraiser celebration thing. I asked the mayor if this would be something that she would even consider because the proposed day is on a Saturday, so we don't typically let the building be used by an external agency on a weekend. We don't even let them do that on a Friday after 5. But she said if the Arts Commission would like to approach it as saying, we're sponsoring and hosting this event here as the Arts Commission in our space, that would be considered. So the question really is if you guys would like to extend that or to the Marine Symphony Orchestra to say like, yes, we'd be willing to host you as some type of whatever sponsorship so that you can utilize our space. If you guys don't want to deal with it, then you don't have to, but they've been a good partner, so I thought you'd like to hear their request.
I think we do have a long partnership with the Meridian Symphony, and we even have a past commissioner that was very effective that started the concerts on Broadway for the city. That is, David Stolhan. We have a long relationship, and I look at that gallery and I wish it were more utilized in different outside hours. I think it would be an opportunity for us to work with a partner that we have a long and wonderful history with, a very strong pillar of the arts and entertainment in the community, and get more people up into that gallery too. I would get fully behind this.
Yeah, so would I. I think it's a very good idea.
The purchase date is like around Valentine's Day, so it would be like mid-February-ish. So I can't see there being other conflicts with the space, or, it's not like the plaza is going to be utilized for a market or something. Hopefully it's easy enough for them to get in and out.
That's usually in a quieter time of attendance at the art gallery as well.
Coming out of
It
winter.
would get people into the gallery at a time when it was less utilized. And Gretchen, you had.
I have some questions. I agree, it'd be great, and it seems like a totally good fit. But I'm assuming the fact that you're bringing it to us means there's not a conflict with the fact that it's a fundraiser?
I don't know if it's really a fundraiser, I don't know what exactly it is. Let me
I can
read
understand.
David's.
And then the
It sounded
second
like
piece
more of a
related to that is, what is the desired use of the conference rooms on the main floor, which are as large really, if it's both rooms, as the gallery? And does that suit the purpose? And then the third piece is, are we setting a precedent? Are we prepared to kind of do things like that for other groups, particularly if it's a fundraiser?
And I hadn't understood clearly whether or not they were going to be doing fundraising.
Exactly what he said.
Yeah, that's a good question to bring up. Because galas usually do have a fundraising component. It might not be the main event, but they do usually come with a fundraising component, at least awareness
Right.
that this is a nonprofit that does take donations. So we should probably follow up on that with David. And Emily, any legal angles on that you're aware of?
Got some additions, but I'll let you talk first.
Okay, Madam Chair, I agree with Gretchen, and, just, you'll want to describe, should you decide to do this, I'll want you to describe in your motion why this is special, because it does, and certainly setting a precedent doesn't mean you're bound by your previous decisions. You're not the Supreme
Right.
Court, but it just for consistency's sake and fairness, it is important for you to describe why MSO is special, which maybe they are, and that's fine, but I definitely articulate that in the motion. Otherwise, I think that's really the only legal issue I can think of if you're.
And I think something that we could bring up in the motion too is that it's not the 5th year anniversary gala, it's not the annual anniversary gala,
Right.
it's the 30th year. And so we can emphasize that this is a major milestone. Yeah, 30. So, yes, that can be managed in the, because I see exactly what you're saying, and it could be a stream of work for us.
Yes.
Yeah, and if we're expected to be there, how many of us need to be there?
Yeah.
How many people are they expecting to attend? And-
Yeah. And so I imagine that part of the, as I understand it, part of the reason we need to, that they asked us to sponsor and host is because of city policy about gallery use. We would certainly expect them to, we would host, but we would certainly expect them to be in charge of the event itself as far as the logistics, and we would be hosting them to the gallery space as opposed to hosting the entire event.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
is it possible that because it's a gallery for exhibit of art, that a display could be made of old pictures of the symphony that go back to the beginning of its inception, and so it would tie in the art, that's the purpose of the gallery, and also the symphony, so it would tie them both together, so there may not be a conflict with using it for a special purpose.
That's a good idea. Bonnie?
I think we need to see if we've got someone already scheduled for that time, and Hillary would probably be able to answer that.
Or even if they just did like words.
Hillary, do
Yeah, something. Mhm.
we have someone scheduled in the gallery for February so far?
Not currently. I had on my own tentatively penciled in Dwight Williams for February because he had expressed an interest in doing a full gallery and he didn't care about a month, and February is a harder month. So I was like, Dwight, you could have February. Let's talk about it with Bonnie. But I've not talked to him about that at all because you haven't even considered it.
And they could just bring, we could even have a video display set up
Yeah.
of a rolling digital art gallery of pictures.
Mhm.
You know, I'd be willing to help coordinate that with David. But that might be something that wouldn't take any space in the gallery, but that would still connect it to
Yeah.
the art of the symphony visually as well as musically. Maybe they have an archival gallery of their programs,
Right, yeah.
which would be fun to look at,
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
the breadth and depth of what they've performed, and the, you know, usually the programs are a piece of art, really.
That's true.
So, yeah.
So 2 items of note from that you guys had asked about. It is a fundraiser that he says possibly where a silent auction would be.
I bet that's what they're looking at the conference room.
Yeah, I'll just read his email to you.
Mhm.
We are thinking something like a string quartet downstairs and possibly where a silent auction would be. Upstairs would be other entertainment like Kings of Swing. We are also thinking a dessert/chocolate bar since it's around Valentine's Day. We would also be looking to do beer and wine. If we need to contain to one floor, initial point would be the choice. We are just trying to figure out venue options given our event details.
I visually would prefer not to have a silent auction in the same space as the gallery. I think that would be at cross purposes to what, you know, to the advantage to the city of having the gallery showcased as a gallery. So maybe that's why they were, to me, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
To showcase the gallery as an art gallery while still, if we can, legally serve the functions of their 30th year. Yes.
Right. He had proposed the auction to be on the first floor with a string quartet. I think if something was contained to one floor, it might be the beer or wine.
Which I'd like.
Walking around City Hall with beer or wine.
Go upstairs in the gallery for that. Good. Why don't we, can we do a little bit, can we flesh it out a little bit more, run the traps on the beer and wine, run the traps on whether or not the spaces are going to be available, and if the city would be okay with 2 spaces being used, and put this on our August, since we do have a little bit of time. My instinct is to want to try to make this happen, but to take the right steps that we need to, that Gretchen brought up, and make sure that it's an event that is an advantage for everyone and doesn't set any precedents going forward that might be confusing. Does that make sense?
Mhm. So continue it to August,
Yes.
where a comprehensive motion will be drafted to highlight why it's a special event or a special organization and define the specific use of each defined space.
Yes.
And that would be helpful to get a handle on how many of us need to be there for how long, what's the expectation for commissioners and staff. since it's a Saturday.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And I'm a musician, so I would try to make that a priority to be there. All right, good. So, E, the Frontier Tire parking lot sign.
Oh, yeah.
Did I hear a no?
Yeah, well, I just thought it was rather odd. When I
It's a
read-
funny agenda item. You don't,
It is a
you just
funny
don't see something like that every day. Frontier Tire
No.
parking lot sign.
Oh, you know what? I've got an email with pictures.
Take it away.
So let me show you first the sign that we're talking about. And I'm sure you guys are relatively aware of the Frontier Tire lot across the street.
Mhm.
Well, of course, I can't rotate any of these. Okay, whatever. We're going with it.
Excuse me.
This is the sign. So essentially, the background of what's happening is that the city of Meridian has a lease now to utilize the asphalt of this lot for parking. With that use, the building department, right, had suggested covering this sign so that it doesn't say Frontier Tire because it would look like a parking lot full of people to go to Frontier Tire, but Frontier Tire is closed, so they aren't going there. So the proposal was to block out that sign with, say, a white banner or something. And I think it was Mayor or Joe, somebody suggested, well, if we're going to be paying money to put a banner up, why don't we put something interesting on the banner at least? So their proposal was to, essentially put art on a banner. And then my proposal to you is that if you're going to put art on this banner, that you make it also a traffic box wrap so that you guys could get an additional traffic box wrap. We could wrap up the both uses in one agreement for the artist. And then building department would cover the cost of printing and wrapping the sign itself.
So we could use one of our, you're saying we could use our gallery that we've already approved, something from the traffic box wraps to use here? Is that what am I?
My recommendation
Okay,
as me, not really, because you have to do that. You guys could reach out to another artist if you wanted to. You could put out a call, but that's something that's happening rather quickly.
I think
So it
we've
seemed
got
like
a
the
lot of-
repository was a good method.
I think we've got a lot of good art in the gallery right now to choose from. We just have to consider size and shape
Right.
but I think, yeah, looking at the gallery we already have first, be smart, and oh, gosh, yeah, a white thing would just hurt my eyes.
So my recommendation isn't from the gallery, it's from the traffic box repository. I don't know if that
Right,
was-
traffic
okay.
box repository, those are the words I was looking for.
So I had sent a couple of pictures that I thought could work to Stacy, who's the project manager for this
Okay.
project. I can just walk you through them if you
Yes,
want to
please.
see what I had pulled out. There's no need for us to have to do one of these. Oh, sorry. We pulled these up. So one of them was Lima. This one's just, most of them that I selected were just because they were more horizontal than,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the aspect.
also something that could be seen while driving by without having to
Quite nice.
stop and
Belongs to
your
the
time or
library.
be a
Oh,
distraction.
yeah, that's so cute. I love that one.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And you know, that would also not be, because we have to consider the color of that, because like that, within the visual line is still going to be that Frontier Tire, the words on the front of that building. This would at least not, yeah, I love that one. Would blend.
I just thought could be, it looked like it was something that had kind of matching lines, so even though it's an up and down, it seemed like something that could fit there. And it's near the Zamzos, and there's that chicken
Yeah.
coop thing
Yeah.
close by, so I don't know if it would work or not. It might just be a repeating pattern. But there we go. Those were the 6 I had pulled out, but we also have the entire repository.
I really love that ensemble cast.
Yes.
And it's got the color palette of the building, it's not going to be a big contrast. Yeah, you can put it all side by side.
I'm trying, I'm getting there. Maybe.
Oh, thank you.
So, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
did you say, and I missed it, is the sign on the building going to be covered then?
No,
No,
the
that's-
pylon sign here.
So
Yeah.
can they even just paint over it with a neutral color or something?
Sorry, what? Could they just paint over it to what?
Just paint over the red so it's not so prominent?
Oh, on the building? Did we lease the building?
Can we put a mural on the building?
It's not publicly owned.
Wow.
No. That was crushing to me as well.
We can't change the building. There was some discussion of some more temporary ideas, but we wouldn't be able to paint over it. And I think the guy riding the tire, the cowboy on the tire, and then the letters, I think are nailed on there. So like they're each their own letter.
Oh,
Even if we painted it, it wouldn't go away. We'd have to pry them off, but we can't do that either.
huh. Oh, interesting.
My thing.
What about the marquee? Is that going away, or is that?
That is not going away. I think the letters would just be removed. We talked about this one. I don't know if you can see.
Maybe you could
on-
put
wrong
something
one.
like
It says
city
buy
parking.
local, so we could just make that in the center and
Park
leave it
local.
Buy local, and then yeah. So there's a few letters up there. I talked about trying to rearrange them,
You
but
could actually put a city parking available, or something that tells that, hey, you can park.
I don't think it's going to be parking for the public. I think it's going to be parking for city staff.
I see.
Park here if you're special.
No parking.
Good. Yeah. I'd be, yeah, and that's what, considering those colors are gonna be staying. I'm just
My
curious
impression is
about
that
what, when you're driving down, what is in your visual scope? You've got that, that picture of the guitarist that's on the wrap on the corner, and you've got that, you've just driven by the Zamzos, and so that's really not in your field of vision. At the same time, I'd be fine with that hummingbird.
What did I do?
I almost, Madam Chair, I almost think we should do a call to artists for this,
Okay. Just to make it,
because it's such a huge, it's huge.
What is the, Madam Chair, what are the dimensions of this?
do you know what the dimensions?
He estimated
I don't know.
5 feet by 8 feet.
That's big.
The issue with the call to artists, the reason why that was not my recommendation was because this is something that's, like, they finished striping yesterday.
Oh.
So they want it to be done rather quickly.
I see.
And
Then,
it came up
uh,
2 weeks ago
It is,
or
it's
a week
big,
ago.
it's very visual.
Yeah, I think there should be some consideration before we just decide on a.
You also have to keep in mind that it will be, I don't know how long that will be up there. It's not a guaranteed for a certain amount of time.
Can you open up the Susan L. Cox again?
Yeah.
That is, yeah, I agree that ideally we would have
More time.
had more time. Do we have anything graphic as opposed to, that's more graphic and urban looking?
Something that really speaks Meridian.
Yeah.
Graphic and urban, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's, oh, yeah.
Watson Sorensen.
Let's look at that one.
We just got her agreement executed by City Council. but we can offer her another agreement.
Oh, that's right.
At that point, though, there may be a cost to you because then you would likely need to pay her for a secondary use versus before wrapping it in with an additional new traffic box wrap under the same amount of artist stipend. But yeah, let me get to it.
And I would add, there's on Tuesday's city council agenda, there's a license agreement with, and to license that artwork for promotional materials for the community block party. Not that it couldn't be used,
That's
we
really
couldn't ask
great.
her for a third agreement, but just so you know, it's about to become very
Yeah,
ubiquitous,
it's about to
yes.
be very pervasively visible.
It's got the water tower and everything. It's really great.
There's a weather alert coming through.
So I just asked if you guys could consider work from past repositories, and got a yes. So
Yeah, it sounds like
Let's-
our timeline that's been,
that really quick.
so let's,
Is there art on both sides of the sign, or is it just one
It
side?
would be on both
Both
sides of the
sides.
sign. It also, I want your input. I want you guys to maybe share some recommendations, but it might end up being the mayor's choice, if that makes sense.
uh-huh. See, I think those are kind of interesting, the Eric Pratts, because there are the fireworks displays that are done downtown Meridian, and those might be something that, you
Yeah.
know, could be a little bit restrictive.
Madam Chair, yeah, I think
Yes.
I'm thinking about something that's a little more almost innocuous because it's at the end of the day, it's a store sign. And people may not understand what it is or why it's there. So I like the idea of making something a little prettier, but I also don't want something to be confusing or,
Like, oh, is that a hummingbird habitat now?
yeah, what's going in there? Now there's all these cars
Yeah.
over there, and it might actually just raise more questions about what is happening there. I don't know.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
um,
yes.
Well, if we're going to keep it in keeping with the building, this one here, Brian Schreiner, Misplaced Wheels, kind of goes along with the Frontier Tire. Or,
Yeah, it does.
The performer is right on the corner there too, the guitar player, that's right on the
Yeah, that's.
corner.
Mm-hmm. And those actually tonally are not, it's, yeah.
and because
Yeah.
it's a parking lot too. I mean, I
It's, that gives a little whimsy to it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
that's applicable. Yeah, let's look at that Brian Schreiner. Misplaced wheels. And would
Is
we
that-
be doing the same thing on both sides, or would we, I think same thing, if we were to use this, it would make sense to use the same, but
Is this already on a location?
it's
though?
already on a wrap.
It's already on Gem and Main Street over by Les Schwab Tire for the same reasons. But we could extend, again, that might again be some cost to the Arts Commission for an artist stipend. I don't know, or we could look at how much residual funds building has an artist stipend. Yeah, if you guys wanted to recommend a couple to the mayor and then the mayor could pick her prefers, I could include this as an option.
Okay.
It's probably a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea too. Since we can't do a call to artists, it seems that making a couple of recommendations and then. Mhm. So if we, where is this one located?
It is on Gem and Main Street, over kind of by the Speedway.
Also, it's pretty in relatively close proximity.
Yeah.
Yes, it's on the left-hand side of the road instead of the right-hand side of the road as you're coming down Main Street. I think you guys have had
Odd.
3 repositories, so let me. That's funny. And so Brian Schreiner's Boston Terrier and Bonnie's Foothills and Fields have also been wrapped too.
And
Love the
then
shape.
I'm going back to Gretchen's comment, since the Brian Schreiner might not be a possibility because we have it so quickly. I just think something more innocuous and graphically, more on the graphic side, like the Kim Lock or the, might be something that makes a little bit more sense. It's just a design on a sign as opposed to trying to be something more specific. I'm really disappointed the Brian Schreiner piece is so close.
It's too close.
Just what about this Andrea Harris, reserved parking? Because it is reserved parking. It will be reserved parking for the staff. Actually, can we see that Andrea Harris?
I'm sorry, which one?
Andrea Harris?
It's a square.
Oh,
The zoom in.
I mean, in some
and-
ways,
There you go.
it
That's how it would look, cropped.
the reserved parking, that makes me laugh because it literally would be
Right.
reserved
Yeah.
parking. But does it make, because when I drive by the Frontier Tire, it always seems like ghost towns, does it seem like it would exacerbate the feeling of
Yeah.
desertion to see those old rusted out implements? I don't know. Or would people think that was whimsical? And I don't know. I still think something more that, just like the Kim Lock or those other, the ones that were like the graphic fire confetti.
Eric Pratt.
Yeah. Might be a little bit less, it would just seem like a decoration as
Yeah.
opposed to so much of a statement. Not that I'm against making statements with it. I'm thinking, because he submitted a lot of those. It's just kind of cool.
Loud.
It's very loud.
Yeah.
That one's got a little
What was
more
the other
piece.
one?
The blue seems
Black background.
Yeah.
It's dark.
Feels kind of.
But you know what these remind me of? They remind me of the carnival that goes in by the Speedway and the fireworks and some of the things that go downtown Meridian, the Christmas lights. Look, there's a Christmas tree on the left of that. So at least, I don't know. I mean, it's just so visible. And it's, the picture that we have to look at, the tree is in front of it. When it doesn't have, the branches are bare, it's even more.
They're trimming the trees as well.
Oh, I liked the tree in front of it. It muted the effect. Shoot. Well,
Sounds like the Charles Hammond. Or if you guys don't want to make a recommendation, you could yield
Mayor Tammy.
your recommendation to Mayor Tammy. She can choose. She might do anyway.
Madam Chair, I don't personally
Yes.
have strong feelings about this, so I'm happy to cede a decision or a recommendation from my own personal seat.
Yeah, let's do that. Because, I mean, Bonnie's right, this would normally be something that we would want to.
Can they just do like the city logo without City of Meridian
Yeah.
on a white banner? Right?
Or they didn't want to do that, but they could do that, yes.
Well, I think either going with something like this that's just the right shape, this one or the hummingbirds, or one of the graphic pieces would be my loose recommendation.
Sounds good to me.
So,
Sorry,
Here
just
we
taking
go.
notes. I'll exit out of all my windows.
all right. Do we need to make a motion on that, or can we,
It sounds like you're not making a decision, so.
yeah, I mean,
Say.
we
Let's move on. It's
stated for the minutes about what we think might be okay, but, yeah. All right, very good. It's going to be interesting to see what ends up there. So, we are to the Public Art Committee report.
So
Are we going to
everything-
take that? or-
I'll take it just because everything that they had their last meeting about has already been on the agenda. So I just wanted to post this mainly so that you could see their next, or their past agendas, and also know that their next meeting is in August. They are not doing one in July. And then events and outreach committee report, they have a meeting today right now.
Oh,
Technically. But their past agendas are attached as well, and the one for today is attached as well.
thank you. Okay, moving on to 5, the strategic plan. This is what we tabled, and we will, so everybody, will you send out a doodle poll or something for times on a special meeting for that?
Yeah. Are there any days, like, that no, don't work?
Bonnie and I both have some out-of-town time. I'm going to be out of town from probably around August 1st to the 14th. 2 different things.
I'm out the whole month.
A month? Okay.
So it looks like, and I'm out of
You
town
send comments,
next week.
the word, and then we discuss and conference you in potentially, Bonnie?
Excuse me?
Bonnie, could you send your comments via the Word document, and then we conference you in potentially to a meeting? Or you're unavailable for a conference in?
It depends on what day it is.
Okay.
And I could conference in. I won't be able to conference in during early August, but once
Okay.
I could conference in after the 7th of August.
Okay. Did you guys want to try to talk about it before August, or is August?
I leave Sunday
Okay.
for a festival.
Okay, that's right. I will send out a doodle poll to get that.
But I get back, so I don't have my phone for my calendar, maybe the last week in August.
In August or July?
I'm sorry, July. I could do a meeting the last week in July.
Bonnie, when do you leave?
I'm leaving on a week from today, and I'll be back around the 28th of August.
Okay.
But could you conference in possibly, depending on the day, in the last week in July?
No,
No, that's,
it's just totally out.
okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm gone then too. Last
Oh,
week
you're
of July.
gone. Okay,
August was fine though.
all right. Well, I think this emphasizes and I include myself in this, that we all do need to get in and look at that strategic plan and make our comments, so that when we do find a time, it'll be as quick as possible to get the consensus for moving it on to the next phase. What's the timeline with the city and the comprehensive plan? Do we need to have this done?
Comprehensive plan is still getting it, so the first draft is out. They're accepting comments. You guys can consider the current draft and the current policies drafted there. We can't anticipate what we don't know from the public, but I would say that that's pretty solid ground to stand on right now. You may also consider, I know that Bonnie and Leslie, you both have conflicts, but you may also consider like the strategic plan committee meeting or having a committee meeting to go through this more. I don't quite know how that would work. You guys are 2/3 of the committee, and your third person is no longer here.
Yeah.
So that's really challenging.
So,
Special meeting might be your best case scenario.
what's the date of our August
8th.
meeting? The 8th. So I'll be out of town for that next meeting. Why don't we just, it's going to be hard to, why don't you, with considering what we just said, so from what I understand, Bonnie would be available in August for a phone call, depending on the day.
On the day.
I could make that happen after the 7th of August. And we do have a little bit of time. We're not getting in the way of the city's schedule. So why don't we go ahead and see if we can find something I could conference in. It would give people, hi, Maria.
Maria.
Like the record reflect that Maria Tsampa's in the room. Hi.
Emergency at work.
That's all right. Thanks for coming. So why don't we try to send out a doodle poll for August, the week of, gosh, where is my phone? I can't get my calendar in front of me. What day of the week is August 8th? Isn't that a Tuesday?
It's a Thursday, because that's when your meeting is.
Oh, that's when the meeting is. Okay, so we would need to do it before then.
You don't have to do it
I've
before then,
got to
because you would
find
have
my
a special
phone.
meeting. You'd have 5 people present, and you could have a decision made and a draft
And I don't
forwarded to the
So
mayor.
I don't need to,
Okay.
yeah, I don't need to be there particularly. I feel like a time amputee.
I will
without
send
my
out a
phone.
doodle poll,
I
because
put a
it's too much
calendar up.
to get on
Ah,
to get under us right now.
Let's do that.
Okay,
Could we move on to 5B?
yes,
Yes.
please.
So we
And
don't
I'm
have.
sorry, I got a little obsessed because I usually am just looking at the dates on my phone and I can't find my phone, so it's making me crazy. Moving on to Meridian Art Week.
Yes, so poster contest, I don't have an updated draft to show you, but I did want to say that we met with the artist, and we're trying to make more room in the poster so that it's a little less crowded. So essentially, that's what she's working on now. I will try to get that draft back to the committee as soon as she has that turned into me. I'm just going to keep flowing because there's another thing happening
Yes.
at 5:30. B2, Mayor Tammy DeVere's Awards in the Arts nominations. Please nominate people. You guys can do that. So let's have you guys nominate some people. We only have 1 nomination from an outside person right now, and then 3 from me. So if I can do 3, each of you can do 1.
Okay.
Schedule and task discussion.
Nominate.
And I will tell you guys what I need from you after the Events and Outreach Committee meeting that's happening as soon as this meeting's over. If that's all right.
Fantastic.
I know that sounds harsh, but we need to move.
That's fine, let's do it. Report.
6A, report.
Yeah.
Participatory budgeting reports. The receptacles will be purchased this week or next, depending on the PO process. Amber will then continue working with Art Designs on the wraps. That's all I have. I asked if they've selected all their artwork, and I did not hear a response back. So I think that they received a lot of applications for artwork, so hopefully they've made those selections already.
Great.
Sounds like Amber's on top of it.
Perfect. B, Treasure Isle Children's Theater.
Maria, you attended Moulin Junior, yes?
I was there for part of it.
Okay, that's all right. But it seemed like it was pretty well
Yes,
attended.
I think next time, what I plan to do is post more pictures maybe on our MAC Instagram. But it seems like it was a pretty good turnout. So,
Great.
yeah. That's all I had.
Yeah. And I think they thought that originally the plaza would be a really easy space to work with, but there was a lot of other stuff going on that week. There was Public Works Week, so they weren't able to practice at all. I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then there was the playing in the plaza on Thursday, so they had really limited time as far as rehearsal time in the actual space. So I think that was a bit of a challenge, but hopefully we can work around that next time that they're performing in the plaza.
Good. Initial Point Gallery.
Um,
Bonnie, who wants to?
Who did the last opening?
He was here for the opening, and he's not here now.
Okay.
I don't know how it all went. There was some feedback from people that were attending. There's a series of 4 works that were like named, whatever, Big Wood River 1, Big Wood River 2, Big Wood River 3. But we didn't know that when setting them up, because as most of you know who've helped with the gallery arrangements, we just kind of set them up and look at how they look with each other. We don't know the names of them. And the artist didn't think that she wanted them all. She didn't specify that she wanted that series together, but apparently to a viewer of the gallery, they would have preferred for a series to be together. So it's good insight for us to know, I guess, in the future, if the artist cares for it to be together or not. We can at least ask. I see the titles in advance, so I can say, oh, I noticed you had this series of 3. Is that important to you that they are paired together? If so, let us know how you'd like them to be paired.
A good insight going forward then was.
Yeah, I don't think that
good.
the artist, she didn't want them moved. She didn't seem like she was upset that we didn't stage them together. And then, did anybody cover August?
Oh, that's right. You need it. I'm out of town for that one. Is there anybody available to?
I'm going to double check my schedule. So I think I might be able to do it. I just want to double check that I'm in. Because I did see your email. So
Great.
I'll touch base with you in like the next couple days.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Maria.
All else fails, I'm here, so
Okay.
it's not the end of the world.
All right, the monthly expenses.
Your current expenses, or your current summary, your recent expenses include primarily the $20,000 for Ken McCall. That's these appear to be weirdly out of order. So there were also, I think, since your last meeting, the traffic box art artist stipends for those that were selected from the youth art show.
Okay. All right.
So back
Okay.
to here.
Straightforward. All right, good. We need to, if there are any questions for Hillary on that, we need a motion
Madam
to.
Chair, I would like to move that we approve the financial statement.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the admin report.
Report. Mainly, you guys can read it, except that I want to point out that there is a arts and culture roundtable. So Stuart referenced this when he came and spoke to you guys, that ICA would be doing regional roundtable discussions. So those have been set up. I don't think that they require, it's a community conversation, so it doesn't require an RSVP as far as I know. And the Boise roundtable is scheduled for Friday, August 26th.
Cool.
Between noon and 2. One thing, if you do want to go, please tell me. That way, in case there's a quorum of you going, I can notice it and say, like, a quorum of MAC members will be attending.
Okay,
Be transparent.
good.
Hillary, Friday, the 26th of August is a Monday. Is it Friday the 23rd?
Probably.
Monday the 26th.
It's probably the 23rd.
Okay.
That would make sense with my fat fingers. Yes, the 23rd. They have a Facebook event. I will forward.
Okay.
Well, I didn't get an email.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I'll try to forward whatever I can.
Okay. I have a conflict that day. Darn it. I wanted to go to that. Okay,
There.
great. Anything else for the admin report then?
Nope, you guys can read the rest of it there.
Thank you.
And yeah, mainly the budget enhancements are still moving forward.
On August 8th, Bonnie and I will both be gone. Gretchen, are you going to be in attendance? No. Do we have a
The 7th
quorum?
through.
Oh, do we even have a quorum for the 8th? We'll need to determine that and then to determine who can, if we do, who can chair the meeting.
I'll be here on the 8th.
Okay, Lynn will be
Okay.
here.
You get to run the meeting.
Yeah.
Randy,
on.
will you be here?
Thanks for volunteering.
August 8th?
I'll be here.
You'll be here?
Yeah.
I'm just double checking on the 7th.
Okay, then we'll have to check with Jessica and Jennifer to see if we have the
Jay.
magic number.
Have Jennifer.
Jessica and Jay.
That's all me. I'm good.
Jennifer, we don't have-
She leave.
Heard that one, did we have-
We need to, I mean, can we adjourn the meeting so that these people can?
Yes,
come here?
please, motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
All, second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, I'm sorry about that little moment.